Monday, June 9th, coming off of another incredible weekend in the sports world. There's so much to talk about. It's a big week around these parts, U.S. Open week. We've got a couple of the championship series knotted at one apiece and all kinds of stuff going on in other sports as well. Vegas Mack, my friend, how was your weekend and your sports weekend? Two separate questions I'm asking there right off the top. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, my weekend's good. I'm starting to get to that point of the summer where I'm not sure what day it is, which is kind of a good thing. So that always works. My sports weekend was a lot of fun. I learned a couple of things, and I was going to say, I don't know if it was good as yours because you sent me this one screenshot of what you had going on this weekend. I don't know what sport you did touch, maybe tiddlywinks.
No markets on tiddlywinks. No markets.
Yeah,
I probably would have tried. I mean, if it's out there and it's got a pulse, I'm gonna bet the damn thing. Yeah, we might need to get me the phone number, man. It might be that time. I don't know. I mean, to fill in everybody on what Mack's referring to here, open bets at one point this weekend on horse racing, golf, the French Open finals, college baseball, super regionals, Major League Baseball, the NHL, the NBA, and NASCAR. I got a guy. Like I said on Friday, I got a guy when it comes to horses. I got a guy who's usually pretty sharp when it comes to NASCAR. I'm going to punch him in his freaking junk the next time I see him. We tried to chase a little ladder on AJ Allmendinger this weekend. Just, to his credit, I mean, most of the sites only let you bet a winner, a top 5 and a top 10. This particular site that I was on to place this bet was a winner, a top 5 and a top 10. Allmendinger, I think, finished 17th. So it's not like he was far off, but yeah, man, I don't know what it is. Having action, even if it's, how I'll make a bet for $2.50 just for the fun of having a rooting interest in it.
There you go. Well, I saw your boy.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it just keeps you occupied. I saw your boy. Yeah, I saw your boy. Keggs went 4 for 4 yesterday. That was kind of nice.
Got that average up to 240. Hey, when you're ailing as a hitter, just play against the White Sox or play in Colorado. So it was fun. There was so much. It was so hard to keep track of everything. Did some reconfiguring of the office here so we can get another TV screen in here because there's only so much I can watch at once, and I need more.
Now, listen, I'm going to be honest. I did not see this live. I just saw the clips of it. But I have to tell you, I wish I would have saw it live because it was probably the highlight of my weekend. And it's off a little bit, but the return of R-Truth to Money in the Bank was one of right? I mean, whether all that was true or not, they released him or not, that was great stories right there. That R-Truth coming back, that was a lot of fun.
Speaking of wrestling, I got to give a shout out to my oldest son today, his 20th birthday. Nice. He sends me a text the other day. He goes, "You're never going to guess where I'm going for my birthday, brother." And I'm like, "To work?" And he sends me a picture back. A buddy of his, and he made this. They were talking about, hey, next time wrestling's in town in the Phoenix area, want to go check it out. He will be live in attendance tonight for the title match between Gunther and Jey Uso. So shout out to Cam. Happy birthday, brother. Enjoy the show. Apparently they got some good tickets. Birthday. So I'm hoping he sends me some good pictures. The weekend wasn't great betting wise. I was gonna send him some extra cake on top of, his birthday present so I could reload my CM Punk t-shirt collection. But it was a rough one, man. I tell you what, and I know we've talked about it a lot, and I want to start off the top somewhere that we wouldn't usually start, and for a couple of reasons, because you've brought this up, and those of you that are just now learning about us, thank you for being here. Follow us on all social platforms at Mike Arana Show. There is a third member of our crew, TJ. He will be back with us on Wednesday, but Mack does this segment usually on the weekends. It's a little skewed. It's usually Saturday morning outside of football season. We call it the Mack Minute. And Mack kind of goes around some of the sports that don't often get a lot of love, or just some of the random things that pop through Vegas Mack's crazy sports brain in 60 seconds. And a year ago, I think, give or take, we weren't doing the segment yet, but you had brought this up, and what happened to the sport of tennis. Now, this week and these past couple of weeks, I was locked in, and I don't know what it is about the French Open, because they're playing on clay, and just seeing the strategery, as TJ likes to say a lot, that comes into playing on clay, the frustration that comes on with playing with clay. The women's final, shout out Coco Gauff for taking the title against Arena Sabalenka on Saturday morning. Sunday morning was insane. You had Carlos Alcaraz, Yannick Sinner. Match was incredible. 5 hours and 29 minutes. Sinner had championship point, and at one point you could have gotten Alcaraz as the defending champion of this tournament down in this event. At championship point in the fourth set, he ends up winning it in a fifth set tiebreaker. 5 hours and 29 minutes. I don't care if you like the sport of tennis or not. You hate it. You have no interest in it. You think pickleball is better than tennis. That's something I'll never understand, just the pickleball phenomenon. To see any athlete compete for 5 hours and 29 minutes at the absolute highest level is a show. And it's, again, I don't much get into Wimbledon. Were you a tennis fan back in the day, as I circle in a long ass way back to that video? Like, were you back in, did you watch tennis? Because I never did for the last couple of years.
So I'm going to prop my little props right here. I am undefeated as a collegiate tennis player. Long story. Here we go.
Is there video of that in black and white?
No, my roommate was the #1 tennis player. I played racquetball all the time with him, and also with the tennis coach. I love playing racquetball. We had a really good tennis team in college, and our tennis team, they had a bunch of kids who were sick, and my suite mate, who was the #1 player and also the #1 doubles player, he's like, I need you to come and play doubles today. And we went and played doubles, and I won. I don't really put much to the match, but, just as that. But, yeah, I did like it. I think, honestly, Mike, here's the biggest deal is, and it's horrible to say this, but there isn't a really good player from the United States. And I think that's the one thing that attracts a lot of people, obviously, here in the States to sports like that. It's like there's no rooting. I don't have a rooting interest.
Right.
I don't follow it enough. And there's not, like I go back, did I follow it? Yeah, I followed McEnroe. I followed Connors. I followed Sampras. I followed Andre Agassi. I'll be honest with you, like the Americans, when the Americans were good, I watched it. Same with on the women's side, Serena and so forth. That's what got my attention. And we just don't have that now. And so you kind of, you look every once in a while, and there never seems to be somebody from the United States playing all that well. So you just kind of, whatever.
Yeah, we do have some renewed hope on the women's side, and Coco Gauff at only 21 years old. I think she is. Yeah. And again, I'm not a tennis expert. I'm not going to claim to be one. I don't watch it every single week, but like the French Open, the Australia Open, I'll watch. Not a fan of Wimbledon. I don't know if it's the hoity-toity atmosphere around Wimbledon. I just it was fun. And again, we started the show by talking about the gambling aspect of it. I mean, it gave me something to do at all hours of the day for the last 2 weeks here. Didn't end up working out well for me as I lost both.
You're going to be all right?
Yeah, I'm going to be all right. Yeah, I might. Now, I just, I think what you're saying there has a lot to do with it. And as we set up for the U.S. Open on the golf course this week at Oakmont, which should wreak havoc on the entire field, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. I think, the same thing. I mean, being in the United States, you pull for good Americans. And I think the men's tennis game is lacking that prominent American. I mean, again, you had Italy and Spain represented in the final this weekend. So a lot of stuff happened this weekend, Mac. Let's go to what happened most recently. Game 2 of the NBA Finals last night. Now the series is knotted at 1 as they head back to the field house. Indy is going to be jumping. That town is going to be absolutely alive. I've got my thoughts for what I think is going to happen there. But last night, kind of a herky-jerky game that got away from the Pacers and got away from them in a hurry quickly. And normally that's not a problem for the Pacers, but this is the best team that they've played. Again, if the Pacers were able to pull this off and win the title, statistically, when you look at the records of the teams that they've played in this run, if they pull this off, this is the most impressive run to a title that there is. There's a lot of basketball left. What are your first thoughts on last night's game 2?
I thought Indiana, I liked the way they started the game. I really did. And then just like you said, all of a sudden, I mean, they couldn't make a shot. I didn't really think it was so much Oklahoma City's defense. I just thought they just were just their shot selection wasn't good. And I mean, at one point, at like a halftime, they're shooting 34%. I mean, you're not going to win a game shooting 34% against a high caliber team like that. For me, for whatever the reason, Halliburton and Nesmith just don't seem to be providing a whole lot for Indiana. And I think those two guys, especially Nesmith, I mean, you said it, I think in one of your videos, he's kind of like the Energizer Bunny for that team. He's just been kind of non-existent. I don't know if it's that ankle, if there's an injury, if it's just the defense that Oklahoma City plays where they allow you that space at the top, but then once you're trying to get to the basket, it seems like there's like 10 of them in there. But it just was not a good night for Indiana at all.
Yeah, I think the thing with Nesmith, I mean, he played better last night. He had 14 points on 5 of 12 shooting, 4 of 8 from 3. And when the Pacers looked like they were going to do the Pacers thing, which is come back from a huge deficit in the second half, he was kind of a key point in hitting some threes there. But I think Nesmith's working so hard on the defensive end that's affecting his offense. And Rick Carlisle said this after the game last night too, and I think it is the most telling thing that really tells you about this Pacers team. And I don't think a lot of people paid a whole lot of attention to them because of how slow they started the season. But their offense is like an ecosystem. And when somebody is playing well, everybody ends up playing well. And I think the struggles for Halliburton and his inability to kind of get going early for them is what's affecting in the trickle down. I think the first guy it affects is Aaron Nesmith. And Oklahoma City, I mean, I said it this morning in our recap, like, we know how good they are defensively. They swarm, they attack. It's how high they make you start your offense. I mean, your offense is starting up by half court, and it's hard to get into the paint. And when the Pacers can get into the paint, that's when that whole ecosystem really takes flight for Indiana. And they haven't been able to get into the paint. Feel free to comment along if you're watching with us, your thoughts on the NBA Finals. We've got Stanley Cup Game 3. We'll get to that in a little bit, a little baseball and some U.S. Open stuff. But last night, the contributions from Oklahoma City, and I mentioned this in my series preview, is I thought role players were going to play a huge part in this series. Alex Caruso, 20 points off the bench last night. Aaron Wiggins, 18 points off the bench last night. And Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams had good games. And when those two are playing well, and Shea is giving you 9th straight 30-point game in the postseason, the only person to do that in NBA history, Wilt Chamberlain. But Wiggins and Caruso last night, when you're getting that contribution from those two guys, it's really, really tough to beat the Thunder.
Yeah, Mike, I've got a couple of questions for you. Here's the first one. Do you think Oklahoma City's dominated this series so far?
No, I don't think either team has. I think
Okay.
Oklahoma City has forced the issue on Indiana in both games, but I don't think we've seen either team really play a complete game, which is kind of scary going forward here as a best of 5 now.
I'm going to have you put on your head coach's cap for this next couple of ones. You're now the Indiana Pacers head coach.
Do I get the paycheck?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Let's go.
Offensively, I'm going to give you 2 options. Okay. What do you think you need to do to win these next couple of games? Run more or attack the paint more?
I think it's a little bit of a combination of both, but I think the one thing that the Pacers haven't been able to do consistently and successfully at a consistent level so far in the series is get into the paint. And you heard Tyrese Halliburton after the game last night talking about, his struggles. I mean, you look at his box score from last night, 7 of 13 from the floor, 3 for 8 from 3, 17 points. But a lot of that came in the fourth quarter in situations where the game, even for the Pacers, was a little bit out of reach. I think, again, they have to get him going early and they have to get into the paint more. And that's what Oklahoma City wants you to do, is keep you out of the paint. And when you get into the paint, you saw it a couple times in the first half. When they got into the paint, there's 4 guys around the ball right there. So I think if the Pacers, I thought they pushed the pace early and the way they wanted to at the beginning of the game, they just couldn't get anything to fall down. So I think in game 3 in front of their home crowd, in game 3 has been the Achilles heel for the Pacers this entire postseason. They haven't won a single game 3 yet. So getting into the paint and their offense flowing outside of that, I think is the biggest key for the Pacers going forward.
All right. Last one for you. Which is going to be more like what we're going to see for the rest of this series? Game 1 or game 2?
I think it's going to be more like game 1. Indy was hitting their shots early in game 1. They were turning the ball over, as we know, like at a historic pace to start that game. I think game 1 is a little more of a mirror of what we're going to see for the rest of the series. And something else that I mentioned when we were previewing the series is Indy couldn't have a bad shooting night and win a game in the series where Oklahoma City can. And that was exactly what we saw last night. And you mentioned it. Indy couldn't hit a shot. So I think game 1 is more of what we're going to see going forward. I know the field house is going to be electric. They've been doing swag bag giveaways in Indy to the point where like the Indy PD was telling people to stop coming down because they were going to run out of bags and it was backing up traffic. I mean, we know basketball in the state of Indiana are synonymous with just part of the fiber of America. And they've been waiting a long time for this. So I can't wait to see what happens when we get back to play here. I believe game 3 is Wednesday. Yes, it is Wednesday night. But now we've got a best of 5 series here, and it would not shock me one bit. And we've got a show on Wednesday. We'll go a little more in depth into this on Wednesday, but I would not be shocked if this series heads back in a best of 3 when we get to game 5. I think we will see a split here because I think these two teams are very evenly matched. Do you think we get a split when we return to Oklahoma City?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think either team is going to run away with this series at all. I mean, this is but I do think this is a key game for Indiana. I think the one that you can usually steal is that first one when they come home. People, you've been on the road. They kind of relax a little bit. You kind of have all that momentum. You have the home court. I always think that first one on the road is an easy one to steal.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to see the coaching strategy that goes on now with a little bit of time off here in between game 2 and game 3, as is pretty customary. The double big lineup last night that Mark Daigneault threw out there with Hartenstein and Holmgren, who that gave Indy some problems. I've mentioned a couple of times, I think Obi Toppin is a matchup problem for the Thunder, and it kind of forces their lineup hand. So you've got 2 tremendous coaches, 26 to 12 teams.
Points in the paint.
Yep. And that's exactly it. And when you go back to the previous game, one of the big keys that you brought up and was probably the biggest key of the game in game 1 was Indy beat the living hell out of Oklahoma City on the boards. So you saw a lot more of Holmgren and Hartenstein on the floor together. So let's go to the NHL here. Again, feel free to comment along. Follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show everywhere but Snapchat, because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. We've got a hockey game in a series that is also knotted at 1 tonight. We'll have your thoughts coming up on all of our social channels here in a little bit after we get off the air here. But Friday night, just when we thought they couldn't top game 1, they said game 2 said hold my Molson, and we went to double overtime. Brad Marchand, exactly why they picked him up. He gets a breakaway goal. He gets the OTGWG in the second overtime period. I'm interested to see how both of these teams come out tonight, because we've played now in 2 games 9 periods of hockey. And what kind of toll does that take on both of these teams going forward? You've mentioned it a couple of times. The series has been incredibly physical. Not to spoil the front line here, but one of the things that I know you are going to talk about in your preview video that'll be coming up here in about an hour on all of our social channels with your exact thoughts on tonight's game is the difference between the second period and the third period in this series. It's been really telling to see kind of what's happened in game 1 and game 2. That game on Friday night, man. I mean, how do they top it tonight? Do we go to 3 overtimes tonight? I mean, what do we do here at this point? Obviously, these two teams are very familiar with each other based on last year's series. They're well-built, top to bottom, well-run organizations. Again, I will not be shocked one bit if we're in the middle of Cavs Warriors in the NBA Finals and we see these exact same 2 teams again next year in the Stanley Cup Final. But what's your first thoughts on tonight's game? I'm interested to see what the physical toll of the extended hockey does to both of these teams.
I think one thing that I want to have everybody watch is, remember, Florida has the ability to last change on their lines. And so they're going to start, they can now match up the way they want. And I think that makes a huge difference. I don't know if a lot of people, I mean, true hockey fans know that, but I think people who maybe just watch it don't realize that the home team has the last chance. So when you put McDavid and Draisaitl out there and you're now at Florida, you get to decide what line you want out there and what defensive pairing you want out there to go against them. I think that's going to make a difference in this series. I think that's one of the things to watch for. Obviously, in Edmonton has the last chance, so they can match however they want. I think that's going to be one of the keys in this game, is how Florida matches up with both Draisaitl and McDavid now that they have that last line change.
Yeah, and TJ mentioned this in his recap too, which I think is very telling as well. Sam Bennett, everybody's favorite guy to hate unless you're a Panthers fan. Now the most goals by a Panther in a single playoffs. He passed Carter Verhaeghe's 11 from last year. He's at 13 now. He's been Bennett the Menace in front of the net, and whether you think it's clean, whether you think it's dirty, I mean, that's always an interesting debate as well. But can Bennett continue the magic at home? Because he's been way better on the road for the Panthers than he has at home. And the other thing that he mentioned, I think, is very key, and I think you would agree with this, is Tkachuk, Barkov, and those guys, can they get into the mix? Can they offensively make a contribution? Verhaeghe is the other one. Can they make contributions tonight? Because that's obviously a massive key for the Panthers in this game and going forward in the series. I'm going to give you a couple of stats that kind of blew my mind here. The first one I just mentioned, Sam Bennett, most goals by a single Panther in a playoffs since he passed Verhaeghe's mark from last year. Active NHL players points in the postseason. Brad Marchand with his game the other night, he's now 4th with 155 points in 176 games. If you don't know why we and other people refer to Connor McDavid as Connor McJesus, this is the most telling thing, along with the toe drag dangle assist the other night. Not many times when the guy has the assist is he the first guy in the handshake line down the bench. Evan Bouchard's reaction to that play the other night, he's in the back after Draisaitl scores, and Draisaitl kind of looks at McDavid, like, did you just do that? And Bouchard's back there, like, hands on his helmet like this. Connor McDavid has 148 points in his postseason career in 92 games. Like, that is insane. So for those casuals that watch for the first time during the Stanley Cup final, that shows you why he's had and earned the nickname McJesus out there. I'm very interested to see if Edmonton can get the first goal tonight and how that shapes the game. The first period, I think, is going to tell us a lot. And the first period in game 1 and game 2 have been fantastic.
Yeah, and one thing about Florida, I mean, they tend to play even a little bit more of a defensive game at home. And so that it's going to be interesting to see. I think tonight, I'm expecting a lower scoring game tonight for, like I said, because of the matchups. I think one of the things you said, because it's been so physical, I think it's going to take a little bit out of them. They've played a lot of hockey, but Florida tends to play a much, I should say a different game, but it's a little more defensive brand of game at home than they do on the road.
Yeah, and Rally Towels out at Amerant Bank Arena tonight. Little hidden logos of the 3 teams that they've knocked off along the way in this postseason here. So it's going to be a fun one, a wild one. And then after tonight, they get Tuesday and Wednesday off before game 4. So, one of the things that I mentioned off the top when we were talking about this is the physical toll and the extra hockey that they've played so far in this series. They'll get a chance to kind of recoup a little bit from that as we get to game 4. Final thought from tonight's game. Again, Mack's full thoughts and prediction for tonight will be up in about an hour or so after we get off the air here. But final word on the Stanley Cup before we move into Major League Baseball.
I mean, there's a part of me that would love to see this game go to 3 overtimes, just to kind of keep building. But I also realize at some point, I think we've had enough is enough. Let's maybe save it for a 7th game. But I think we're going to see a different game than we've seen in the last 2 games.
All right, Major League Baseball this weekend. A lot of good stuff happened. Mack mentioned it. Jack Caglione goes 4 for 4 yesterday. He's got that average up to 240. Starting to get a little comfortable for the Royals, which, I mean, any young player that comes in, especially young players that are hyped, they come in and it takes a little bit of adjustment. But, hey, the Chicago White Sox are always the team you want to play when you need to adjust. Speaking of teams you want to play when you need to adjust, before we get to your damn Red Sox, for Christ's sakes, Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil yesterday against the Rockies were ridiculous. 2 homers apiece. And your guy to win the MVP in the National League, the Polar Bear, he's got 18 RBIs in the month of June. It is June 9th. Do the math, people. That's an easy one there. He's off to a blazing start. And we can't go any further in baseball, Mac, without wishing Bobby Valentine a happy anniversary. 26 years ago today, he gets bounced from a game and comes back in his managerial glasses and mustache disguise in the back of the dugout. LA and San Diego, Dodgers and Padres, first meeting of the season for those two tonight at the top of the NL West. And, of course, your Red Sox beat up on the Yankees. I know you were watching. The Red Sox, who are all kinds of banged up right now. Some guys want to run to first base. Some guys don't. But then when you go hit home runs after that, nobody really gives a damn. What jumped out off the MLB page to you from this weekend?
Well, like you said, it was a good weekend for the Red Sox. They definitely needed that. Whenever you can go into New York, win. I mean, especially after Friday night in the first inning that I gave up another 6 or 7 runs. I'm like, oh, this weekend is going to be just awful. They rebounded really, really well. The Diamondbacks have, I think we can officially say, hit the skids, getting swept in Cincinnati. I'm really concerned about the Arizona Diamondbacks. I don't know what's going to happen with that team. And again, the Detroit Tigers. I'm people, if you haven't seen the Tigers play, you've got to watch them play. I don't care who they're playing against. I'm gonna go out and buy a Tigers hat. I'm rounding I'm rallying around the Tigers this year. This
Only
is
if
a
you buy the
fun
old school
team.
Tom Selleck
Last year,
Magnum PI hat.
yes, absolutely. Listen, last year you were all gushing about the Royals and Bobby Witt Jr. and I get it, but this year I am solely on that Tigers train. I love this team. I love the players on this team. They pitch, they hit. It is a fun team. Seriously, if you're a baseball fan and you haven't seen the Tigers play, you got to do it. They're that much fun.
Yeah, attendance record set this weekend at Comerica Park with the Cubs in town, and the ump show was in town as well. Doug Eddings did not have a good day behind the plate on Saturday, and then yesterday the ump show continues. Nico Horner gets bounced for literally saying you're having a bad day to the home plate umpire. I can't remember who it is, and I don't really give a shit who it is. This is an ongoing problem, not only in the major league level, but in college baseball, we've seen the same thing all year round. I mean, these umps with short fuses and gigantic egos, not great for the game. And what is our commissioner doing? The same thing he always does, not a damn thing about it. It's ridiculous to see some of these guys jumping into this power trip and everything else. You mentioned the Diamondbacks. Snakebit is a perfect way to describe the Diamondbacks for those of you that don't know yet. Corbin Burns, Tommy John surgery. He is done for the year. I don't think anybody's surprised. I mean, there's plenty of lip readers out there. Of course, the guys at John Boy always do a good job at it, but Burns threw a pitch in his last start, literally called the trainer over right away and mouthed the words, something along the lines of, "My elbow, it's done." And now we know that he's going to be on the shelf there. They get the Mariners tonight to start a series here in Arizona. Emerson Hancock and Merrill Kelly. And speaking of the Mariners, George Kirby, welcome back, man. 14 strikeouts yesterday to end the Mariners' little slide. And speaking of slides, we would be remiss if we don't mention the one that the Philadelphia Phillies are on, losers of 8 of their last 9 right now. We talked a lot and had some high hopes for the Phillies in our spring training tours. And how long was Dave Dombrowski going to wait to make a move? And I think the answer is clearly it better be sooner rather than later. Again, I mentioned the Nationals and how I thought they were going to kind of be a pain in the ass to everybody in that division this year. We're looking at a division that the Mets are slowly starting to run away with, and the Mets are still out there without one of their more productive pitchers in Sean Manaea, who hasn't pitched an inning for them this year. The Phillies 4.5 games back, 1-9, as I mentioned, in their last 10. The Nationals are 30-35. They're closing in on 500. And you say, yeah, what's the big deal there? I mean, the Braves, who knows what the hell's going on in Atlanta right now. And this is a rare thing. And the Braves fans aren't handling it well. For the Braves to just be shitty is the best way to describe what kind of baseball they're playing right now. The Mets with a 4.5 game lead in that division. And it looks like it's going to get extended if the Phillies can't figure something out or can't bring somebody in to help them figure something out.
Yeah, and they have the Cubs, who, again, you talk about a team that we talked about at the beginning. In spring training, we weren't really sure about what we were going to get from the Cubs. Well, I'll be the first to admit, I was way off on the. You were. I was way off on the Cubs. I wasn't sold on them. This is a very, very good team. And they have the Phillies. It's a good matchup tonight, Boyd and Wheeler. That's going to be a good matchup. But yeah, the Phillies, I mean, they're still in the wild card position. But yeah, I keep wondering who is going to be the team that's going to make this first deal. And, you're starting to look at this, is it going to be Atlanta? Does Atlanta say we need to fix it or we can't fix it and one of their pieces go? Is it the Diamondbacks now? I mean, Kelly and Zach Gallen are both going to be free agents at the end of this year. You're not going to get Burns probably till the end of next year if you're lucky. Do you do something there? I mean, and then then, of course, the ultimate wild card is the San Diego Padres. I mean, we've already started to hear the Padres, wanted Jarren Duran from the Red Sox. And this, I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see where that first chip, which team is going to move that chip and try to get there. And then, it's kind of funny. There's two teams in the American League that have kind of played pretty well. It's Tampa, who always seems to find a way, and also Toronto, both in the wild card lead. So it'll be interesting. Toronto, I mean, I've been on them the last 2 years. I've always thought their pitching was pretty good. They've kind of figured it out a little bit. I mean, there's still only 5 games over 500, but that first chip is going to be very important to see what happens.
Yeah, Toronto 8-2 in their last 10 games, and they're not only getting it from their incredible starting pitching staff, but they're getting it from their bats. Addison Barger has been fantastic for the Blue Jays so far this season. So we'll have some more thoughts during the week on what's going on in Major League Baseball. The San Francisco Giants made a little bit of history yesterday. The 4th 7-game or more homestand in Major League Baseball history to have every single game decided by one run. The 1906 Cubs, the 1986 Dodgers, and the 2005 Twins. The Giants have mastered the walk-off win this year, which is amazing because most of the time they do that, it's like a 3-2 or 2-1 walk-off win because they can't seem to get anything consistently going offensively. But the Giants sit one game out of the first place position in the National League West. Somehow, some way, don't ask me how it's being done. They come off of a sweep of the Braves, 5 in a row now for the Giants. They have the Dodgers this week at the end of the week, but they're an interesting team.
The Bob Melvin factor.
It's something right now, and I can't figure it out. And what do you need when you need to keep a winning streak going? The Colorado Rockies. The Giants are there Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday before they head to Los Angeles. Then the Giants' schedule gets a little interesting. Cleveland and Boston. Then they have Miami and Chicago. Then they get the aforementioned struggling Arizona. They get 4th of July weekend they'll spend in Coors Field of California. And then they have the Phillies and the Dodgers again to end out July before they get to the All-Star break. Two teams I really like as we transition into a new segment here, which is the same as an old segment. And I have a joke for you, my Monday joke of the week to get you started, Mac. But two things I really like, really like, and we got to talk about the U.S. Open as well. Two things I really like tonight on the baseball schedule, and we talked about two of these teams specifically. So right now you can get the Cubs on the money line at plus money tonight against Philadelphia. Again, Brown and Wheeler tonight. And then you've got Emerson Hancock against Merrill Kelly, Seattle and Arizona. I like the Mariners at plus money on the money line because of the Diamondbacks struggles. I also like the Cubs at plus money on the money line because of the Phillies struggles tonight. Now, before we go to the U.S. Open, which is coming up, the America's Golf Tournament, I got a joke for you. We talked about Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers on Friday. The Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, Mac, linking up is like finally getting to date your high school crush when she's 40 and she has 4 kids. There's your Monday joke of the day. Figured you might like that one. Let's talk a little golf here. America's Golf Tournament. After a weekend in Canada that was crazy, Ryan Fox wins a goofy playoff. And the U.S. Open's at Oakmont. And the last time we saw the U.S. Open at Oakmont, and of course, this is going to be not well enough for me to see. Do you remember who the number 1 player in the world on the official world golf rankings was the last time the U.S. Open was at Oakmont? I will provide you with one clue if you want.
Go ahead. I'll take the clue. Phone a friend.
Bloomin' Onion.
Bloomin' Onion. Greg Norman?
I saw this list today, and I had to read everybody that was in like the top 10 because it blew my freaking mind.
Oh,
this was June of 2016. All right, I'm going to give it to you. Yeah. Jason Day was the number 1 golfer in the world at that time. The number 2 golfer in the world was Jordan Spieth, followed by Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, and Hendrik Stenson. So we returned to Oakmont, and if you haven't seen the pictures yet, just go on X, go on a Google search. This rough this week, Mac, is going to be ridiculous. Mike versus Mac update from last week in Canada. Mac had a rough week, to say it politely. Not that it really matters because you're dominating the Mike versus Mac competition right now, but I get the win this week at the RBC Canadian Open. And my computer is being slow here. 12-4. I had Pendrith, Hughes, and Nick Taylor, 13th, 27th, and 27th. You had Lowry that got you the top spot, tied for 13th, and Noren and Kim missed. So we go into Mike versus Mac with the stage at 92-85. So the stage is still gettable. Season total, Mac is up 194-166. We'll have our picks for the U.S. Open and our customary spot on Wednesday evening. But this is one of my favorite golf tournaments to watch every year. It is the United States Championship. We have pros versus Joes in a lot of these. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler leads the odds boards there. There's a lot of guys I think you can get some good value on, and it's going to be important this week in strokes gained because of that rough and everything else. So what are your first thoughts as we look ahead to the U.S. Open this week at Oakmont?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that what they say? This is kind of like the 1 week that we watch and we kind of actually relate to what's going on the golf course, because, you know, we see shots sometimes in the U.S. Open that we are able to produce on the golf course when we're out there, you know? So, I mean, I think that's one of the things that we like about it. It's a strain, you know, it's one of those, every shot that these guys take over those 4 days, they are really having to manufacture an idea in their head what they want to do. They know if they miss by just a little bit. I mean, you get in that rough, I mean, there's a good chance you go, if it's a par 4, you know, you're a lot of times, if you can make a 5, you'll take it, you know? And so that's one of the things. So it's a different mindset for these golfers. And again, because, you know, the courses are always a little bit different. It's not like the Masters where, you know, it's the same course every year. You know, we always seem to get a little bit of a surprise. I don't know who that surprise is going to be this year. But yeah, this is always a lot of fun just to watch, because I like to let them, you know, a little bit of anguish on their faces instead of just, you know, flying for the pins and birdie after birdie. We don't, most of the time U.S. Open scores right around par.
Yeah. And speaking of, you know, you don't know who that guy is going to be. I got a guy here, and I'm going to drop this one out early for a couple of reasons. I mentioned strokes gained, and you need a guy in this tournament, especially with the way the course conditions are set up, that does well in strokes gained. And I'm going to drop this out here now, because if you don't jump on him early enough, this number I know is going to change. But if you're looking for long shot odds and a guy this week that fits the bill for what this course is going to bring to the table, who's not named Rahm, Scheffler, DeChambeau, McIlroy, any of those guys, Keegan Bradley right now is a plus 10,000 to win this week. $5 bet gets you paid really well there. I like his odds if you're looking for a guy that has the makeup to play a extremely tough golf course. I mean, you can't play a tougher golf course than one that the Pennsylvania Turnpike literally goes right through the damn middle of the thing. I like Keegan Bradley in that spot this week. I think he's a guy, strokes gained, tee to green. His game fits really well here. He's a veteran. He's been in these U.S. Opens quite a few times. Again, we'll have our official picks as far as Mike versus Matt goes, but I do have some pocket change on Keegan Bradley this week at those high odds. I think he's going to perform very, very well. All right. Best bets is no longer.
You're not putting any money on Phil, are you?
No, but I will tell everybody this. Look up the shot that Phil hit in the live tournament this weekend. And I'm saying look it up because a lot of people probably didn't see it because nobody watches live. The shot he hit, classic Phil Mickelson, who has told us it's more likely than not, in not so direct words, that this is his last U.S. Open this week. I can't say that upsets me any, but I will give credit where credit's due. That shot he hit this weekend was the kind of shot you're going to have to hit this weekend at Oakmont to save some strokes or steal a couple strokes against the competition. So Best Bets is no longer. It has been retired. We've done some research with our crackhead staff, and we're going to put Best Bets to sleep, especially as we in a few weeks start to ramp up for football season. So we've replaced it with our liquid locks. And why is it called liquid locks? Because our liquid locks are as solid as water, baby. I'm going to start because in customary fashion, even though the segment is different now, it's still Vegas Max to take us home on. So my best bets for tonight, my liquid locks. See, I'm already in violation of protocol. That's $5 for the douchebag jar. I'm going to go with Anton Lundell to score a goal tonight in Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals. I think he's had some decent opportunities in the first couple of games. With the Panthers, picking a goal scorer is always a difficult task because they have so much depth and so many guys that have been able to score for them. I like Lundell to score a goal tonight. We mentioned the Dodgers and Padres playing for the first time tonight. It is Dusty May on the bump for the Dodgers tonight, and I'm going to go with the guy that seems to get under the Dodgers' skin more than anybody, Manny Machado, to go yard tonight for the Friars. Battle for the top of the NL West. Mac, your liquid locks for this Monday, June 9th.
All right. Again, I agree with you. It's hard to pick a goal scorer, actually, for either of these teams because they spread it out so much. So I'm going to go with Reinhardt over 2.5 shots on goal. And then I'm going to homer it tonight. I'm going with Wilyer Abreu. He's got 13 home runs this year, all against right-handed pitching. They're facing a righty tonight, Shane Baez, who's given up 13 home runs alone this year. So I think that's about as liquid a lock as you could get.
Let's hope so. I mean, they're not called liquid locks for no reason. All right, set the stage for the rest of the week. Again, Mack's exact thoughts and his prediction for Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals will be up here in about an hour from now. We've got our picks for the U.S. Open on Wednesday. Wednesday will be our next show and final show for this week. And then next week, we're going to ramp up the lunchtime schedule every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 11:30 to 12:30-ish. We'll be here with you. TJ will be back in the fold on Wednesday. Again, follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show, everywhere but Snapchat because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. Buckle up because so far in the Stanley Cup Finals, they have set the bar pretty damn high, and I think both of these teams will rise to the occasion tonight. Whether or not we get overtime, that remains to be seen. A lot of good baseball series getting going this week. The U.S. Open, as we've talked about, lots of fun stuff coming on, and before you know it, it'll be football season. For everybody behind the scenes, for Vegas Matt, for TJ, I'm Mike. We'll talk to you Wednesday. We're out.